Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a really crucial journey into a chapter from Kristin Neff's insightful book, Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself. Specifically, our focus is Chapter 8, which is aptly titled Motivation and Personal Growth.
It's a big one.
It really is. Now, for many of us, the very idea of motivating ourselves, it instantly conjures images of tough love, right?
Yeah.
Strict discipline, or maybe that classic mental carrot and stick.
Yeah, the standard approach.
We push ourselves hard, genuinely believing that only harsh self-criticism will keep us from becoming, lazy or complacent. It's almost ingrained, isn't it?
Completely.
But what if that deeply held belief is actually doing more harm than good?
Yeah.
What if it's actually holding us back?
That's a powerful question, and it's precisely the paradox we're here to unpack today. Our mission is to explore how self-compassion, we're talking real practical kindness towards ourselves, not just some feel-good platitude,
Right.
isn't just an alternative, but maybe a superior engine for authentic personal growth, for learning from mistakes, and for achieving our deepest aspirations.
Okay.
So we'll delve into the psychological theories and the practical applications that Kristin Neff lays out. And this is incredibly relevant for you, our listener, especially if you're navigating the unique challenges of, say, college life.
Absolutely. Let's maybe start with a quirky, even a bit shocking anecdote from the chapter that perfectly sets the stage.
Yeah, the Billy the Kid story.
Yes, the story of Billy the Kid and the horse poop. So a rancher's struggling to get his horse to move, and Billy the Kid rides up, pulls out his revolver, and shoots right into the ground between the horse's ears. The horse, terrified, just bolts off. And Billy says to the rancher, sometimes you just need to get their attention. So like a vivid, if slightly crude, illustration of this widespread belief that to make someone or ourselves do something unpleasant, we need to put a metaphorical gun to their head.
It's a jarring image, but it really highlights a core misunderstanding, doesn't it? The most common reason people give for not being self-compassionate is exactly this fear of becoming lazy or self-indulgent.
The spare the rod, spoil the child idea.
Exactly, only we apply it to ourselves. We genuinely believe that self-judgment is the necessary stick, and maybe self-esteem is the carrot, kind of coercing us into doing what we think we should do, even if every fiber of our being resists.
And we see this pattern play out. Kristin Neff introduces us to Holly, an undergraduate student, right?
Yeah.
From a conservative family, extremely high expectations.
Huge pressure.
Holly felt this immense pressure not just to graduate, but to get an MBA from a top program. And her main tool for staying on track was relentless self-criticism.
Constant.
If she got a less than perfect grade, her internal monologue would just kick in, "You're so stupid and lame, you'll never get into grad school if you keep messing up like this."
Oof. Harsh.
And her reward for this harsh self-discipline was a feeling of pride, both from her parents and, within herself.
But I want you, listening, to just pause and consider the actual emotional state those words create. You're such a lazy, good-for-nothing, I hate you. Do those phrases truly energize you?
Not really.
Do they inspire you to try harder, or do they just deflate you? Like, think about how you'd react if a child you loved came home with a failing grade.
Yeah.
Fierce criticism would emotionally flatten them, right? Make them less likely to even try again. We instinctively know that positive, reassuring messages are more effective for those we care about.
But we don't do it for ourselves.
Yet when it comes to ourselves, we often do the exact opposite. It's wild.
That's a crucial point, and it's consistently backed by research. Our self-confidence, it dramatically impacts our ability to reach goals. Albert Bandura's concept of self-efficacy.
Right, that belief in our ability.
The belief in our own ability to succeed in specific situations, it's directly linked to achieving our dreams. It's not just a nice thought. It's a powerful predictor of success.
And we see this in action through some compelling studies. For example, there was research with over 200 high school wrestlers.
Okay.
Those with stronger self-efficacy beliefs, they won more matches, especially in those really high-pressure, sudden-death overtime situations.
Right.
In those intense moments when physical skills were pretty much evenly matched, the mental belief in their own ability was the sole predictor of a win.
Just the belief.
Just the belief. So self-criticism By undermining this belief, by causing us to lose faith in ourselves, it actively harms our performance. And it's also strongly linked to depression, which, as you can imagine, isn't exactly a state conducive to a get-up-and-go attitude.
So we've established that fear-based self-criticism can be incredibly detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder, for some people, doesn't that fear of failure, that internal pressure, doesn't it actually push them to achieve sometimes? Is there ever a silver lining to the demoralizing whip, or is it always just out?
That's an excellent question because it feels like it works for some, right? It feels effective sometimes. If self-criticism does work, it's usually out of fear, that desire to escape our own harsh self-judgment.
Avoiding the pain.
Exactly. But this approach comes at a significant cost. The anxiety it creates can be debilitating. Think of test anxiety, public speaking jitters, or that frustrating feeling of writer's block.
Oh yeah, been there.
Fear distracts us from the task at hand. It interferes with our ability to focus and give our best. And even worse, self-criticism can lead to what psychologists call self-handicapping.
Self-handicapping, what's that?
It's where we actually undermine our own performance, maybe subconsciously, to create an excuse for potential failure.
Oh.
This protects the ego, sure, but at a huge cost to actual achievement.
This idea of self-handicapping isn't just theory, it's something many of us might recognize. The chapter gives us a perfect illustration with Jim, right? A serious procrastinator.
Oh, Jim, yes.
Everything he did was last minute, waiting until the last possible moment for his GRE, for internship applications, even for buying shoes for his own wedding.
The wedding shoes. Classic.
He always had an excuse ready when things didn't go perfectly. Well, it's not bad, considering I hardly studied. He saved his ego, yeah.
Right. Plausible deniability for failure.
But he never truly reached his full potential. He could have gotten into a better grad school, secured a better internship, or, crucially, avoided a fight with his new bride on their wedding day.
Yeah.
This self-sabotage is what happens when we're so afraid of failing, even after doing our best, that we basically create an out before we even begin.
It's a protective mechanism that ultimately limits us.
So if that harsh self-criticism is this demoralizing whip that ultimately holds us back, what's the alternative? The chapter makes a really compelling case that self-compassion is a far more effective motivator. And the driving force, it's love, not fear.
That's a really, really important distinction. Love allows us to feel confident and secure, partly because physiologically, it triggers hormones like oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, which helps us feel safe, connected, calm.
Okay.
Fear, on the other hand, sends our amygdala, the brain's alarm center, into overdrive. It floods our systems with cortisol, activating our primal fight-or-flight response.
Stress response.
Exactly. Which makes us feel insecure and jittery, precisely when we need calm focus. So when we trust ourselves to be understanding and compassionate when we stumble, we won't cause ourselves that unnecessary stress. We can relax a bit.
Knowing we'll be okay.
Knowing we'll be accepted by ourselves regardless of our performance. This means we're free to try and free to fail and learn without that crushing weight of self-condemnation.
Now, I can hear some listeners thinking, well, that just made me lazy. Isn't self-compassion just a feel-good, warm fuzzy that lets us off the hook? It feels so counterintuitive to our ingrained beliefs about motivation.
It's a very, very common misconception, but let me be clear. Healing and growth aren't served by superficial treatment. Self-compassion isn't about letting yourself off easy.
Right.
Unlike self-criticism, which is constantly asking, are you good enough? Self-compassion shifts the question. It asks, what's truly good for you?
Different question.
Totally different. It taps into your intrinsic, deeply human desire to be healthy and happy. If you genuinely care about yourself, you'll naturally do what's needed to learn and grow, even if that means making difficult choices or giving up certain short-term pleasures for long-term well-being.
It's like caring parents, right? They don't constantly feed their children candy just because the kids love it. Being nurturing sometimes means saying no for long-term health and happiness.
Precisely.
It's about making choices that lead to deep, lasting well-being, not just immediate gratification.
Exactly. Self-compassion involves valuing yourself deeply, making choices that lead to long-term well-being and a greater potential for happiness. The Buddha actually talked about this, referring to it as right effort.
Right effort.
Yeah, he distinguished it from wrong effort, which comes from the ego trying to prove oneself, seeking control over outcomes. That kind of effort actually increases suffering because it sets up the expectation that things should always be exactly as we want them to be, which, they rarely are.
Life happens.
Life happens. But right effort, he said, stems from the natural desire to heal suffering. It's like instinctively grabbing a wet towel if your hair is on fire. You don't do it to prove how good you are at putting out fires.
You just do it.
You just do it. It's about solving the problem because you care and want to alleviate suffering, not to prove how good you are. Motivation from care, not ego.
Now, here's a point that might genuinely surprise some listeners, especially those of us who, again, associate self-compassion with letting ourselves off the hook. Does it actually make us less ambitious?
Ah, the ambition question.
Yeah. The research, as it turns out, suggests quite the opposite.
It really does. Our research in Neff's work has consistently found that self-compassionate people are just as likely to have high standards for themselves as those who lack self-compassion.
Okay, same standards.
Same high standards. The key difference is they are far less critical and punitive when they don't immediately meet those standards. They don't beat themselves up.
Less harshness.
Much less harshness. And they're also more oriented toward personal growth, more likely to formulate specific plans and to create balanced lives. So self-compassion doesn't lower your sights. Instead, it softens how you react when you fall short. And that ultimately helps you achieve your goals in the long run by keeping you engaged and resilient.
This connects beautifully to the idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. You know, that difference between doing something because you genuinely want to learn and grow versus doing it just for external rewards or to avoid punishment. Many of you might recall this from psych classes.
Absolutely. And psychologist Carol Dweck, who's famous for her work on mindsets, she distinguishes between learning goals and performance goals.
Right. Growth versus fixed mindset ties in here, too.
Exactly. People with learning goals are intrinsically motivated by curiosity and a desire for mastery. They see mistakes as a natural and valuable part of developing new skills. It's data.
Information for improvement.
Precisely. Those with performance goals, on the other hand, are extrinsically motivated. They're driven to defend or enhance their self-esteem, so they avoid failure at all costs. They might take the easy A rather than genuinely challenging themselves.
Because failure feels like a reflection on their worth.
Exactly. And research consistently shows that learning goals are far more effective in the long run. They propel people to try harder for longer, to persist through difficulties, and to ask for help when needed, all without that crippling fear of looking incompetent.
The chapter gives such a great, very relatable example with twin sisters, Kate and Danielle. Both loved animals, dreamed of being zookeepers, and they both failed their first difficult zoology exam in college. Big setback.
Yeah, same situation, different responses. And what's compelling here is how their different approaches led to vastly different life paths.
Right.
Danielle, driven primarily by performance goals, couldn't stand the thought of a failing grade tainting her transcript. She just couldn't handle that hit to her self-image, so she dropped the course.
Avoided the potential failure.
Avoided it. And she ended up in a secure, but for her, kind of boring corporate job. Kate, however, with clear learning goals, didn't care about the grade as much as the learning itself.
Okay.
She sought help, dove deeper into the material, ended up with a B, actually, and eventually fulfilled her dream of opening a safari business after challenging herself through a series of low-paid internships.
Wow, totally different outcomes.
Totally. It illustrates that self-compassionate people are more likely to adopt learning goals because they're simply less afraid of failure and less concerned with that external validation.
And it's not just an anecdote. There was a study mentioned, right, when students failed a midterm, the self-compassionate ones.
They were far more likely to see it as a growth opportunity, a chance to learn and improve, rather than a condemnation of their self-worth.
That's huge.
It is huge. When failure is met with understanding and kindness, it transforms from this scary boogeyman into a master teacher. Self-compassionate individuals retain their confidence after setbacks. They quickly refocus their energy on new goals instead of just throwing in the towel in despair.
And they procrastinate less, too.
They do, partly because they're less worried about how others view their performance, and they don't feel the need to build in that plausible excuse for failing, like Jim did.
Right, the self-handicapping thing again.
Exactly. So, far from complacency, self-compassion actually inspires true achievement and cultivates this brave, confident, and incredibly resilient mindset.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly powerful in theory, but how do we actually do it? How do we practice this? The chapter offers some practical exercises. Let's walk through the first one, identifying what we really want.
Yeah, this is a great starting point. This exercise is designed to help you consciously shift from that habitual self-criticism to a more compassionate way of motivating yourself.
Okay, what's step one?
First, take a moment to think about a personal trait you often criticize yourself for, something you genuinely want to change. Maybe you feel lazy sometimes, or moody, or perhaps unhappy with your fitness.
Got it.
Now, really try to get in touch with the emotional pain that the self-criticism causes you. Acknowledge that feeling of being judged, maybe inadequate, and then consciously offer yourself compassion for that pain. Just recognize it hurts.
Be kind to the part that hurts.
Exactly. Then, step 2. Imagine a wise, nurturing friend, or maybe a parent or a mentor, someone who truly cares about your well-being. What kinder, more caring language would they use to gently point out this unproductive behavior while simultaneously encouraging you? What would be the most supportive message, truly aligned with your underlying wish to be healthy and happy?
So find a kinder voice.
Find that kinder, wiser voice. And finally, step 3. Every time you catch yourself being judgmental about this trait in the future, just pause. Notice the pain, give yourself compassion for it, and then deliberately reframe your inner dialogue. Use that encouraging, supportive language your wise mentor would use.
Practice makes perfect, or maybe practice makes progress.
Practice makes progress is better. Remember, love is a far more powerful and sustainable motivator than fear.
Okay, that's really practical. Now, motivation extends beyond just academic or career goals, of course. One area where self-compassion is a particularly powerful motivator, and where, let's be honest, many of us struggle, is in our relationship with our bodies.
Oh, absolutely, a huge area.
In a society obsessed with often unrealistic physical attractiveness, so many of us just tear ourselves apart with relentless self-criticism.
It's pervasive. Unrealistic ideals from media, almost always digitally enhanced, they create immense pressure, especially for women, but increasingly for men too.
Right.
Research shows that while boys' perceptions of their attractiveness remain relatively stable through adolescence, girls feel increasingly insecure as they age. Neff cites that staggering statistic. 80% of 18-year-olds report they've dieted.
80%.
80%. And women are often expected to be like rail thin but super curvy, which is an almost impossible, biologically contradictory ideal to achieve.
It sets you up for failure and self-criticism.
Totally. And this relentless obsession leads to widespread dissatisfaction and can contribute to serious issues like eating disorders. One of the most prevalent, actually, is binge eating.
All right, not often talked about as much.
No, but it's common. Overeating to numb painful feelings or to sort of medicate with food, which then leads to this vicious cycle of depression, maybe obesity, and definitely further self-loathing. It's a painful downward spiral that traps many people.
And why do diets so often fail? You touched on this, but...
Because so many of them start from a place of self-hatred. I hate my body, therefore I must restrict. When you inevitably break the diet, and everyone eventually does because rigid restriction isn't sustainable, the inner critic just jumps in loud and clear.
I knew it, I'm useless.
I can't believe I ate so much. I'm so disgusted with myself. I might as well finish the whole bag of chips since I'm clearly a lost cause.
Right. That self-criticism drives further overeating, often as a misguided comfort mechanism, creating that frustrating cycle of yo-yo dieting.
So if that's the pattern, how does a self-compassionate response radically change things? What does that look like?
It changes everything because the starting point is different. It involves forgiving yourself for lapses, recognizing life isn't linear. 2 steps forward, 1 step back is a natural human rhythm, especially when changing habits.
It's not failure, it's just part of the process.
Exactly. By having compassion when you fall off track, you're less driven to overeat out of self-punishment or as that warped comfort mechanism. There was a really revealing study mentioned with undergraduate women eating a donut. The donut study. Yes.
Those who were encouraged to be self-compassionate after eating the donut, like, hey, everyone indulges sometimes, don't be too hard on yourself. They ate significantly less candy in a later taste testing session compared to a control group who didn't get that message, even if they were currently on a diet.
Wow. So being kind actually led to eating less junk later.
Precisely. It broke the cycle of, I blew it, might as well keep going. This isn't just theory. It shows the practical, measurable impact of self-compassion on our actual choices.
That's a powerful demonstration. And self-compassion also affects how we approach exercise, right?
It does. Kristin Neff's research indicates that self-compassionate women tend to have more intrinsic motivation for exercise. Meaning they exercise because they find it fulfilling and worthwhile in itself, because it feels good or reduces stress, not primarily because they feel they should or because they're solely obsessed with appearance or weight loss.
Doing for well-being, not just looks.
Exactly. Oprah Winfrey is actually mentioned as a great public example of this principle. Despite her very public struggles with her weight over the years, she consistently talks about focusing on being strong and healthy and fit to be itself.
Health over just thinness.
Right. Her goal isn't thinness for its own sake, but to embrace her body and be grateful for its capabilities. When you drop that need to be perfect, you can accept and even revel in who you are right now, focusing on what truly matters, your health and overall well-being.
So how can we apply self-compassion to our own body image, which can be so tricky? The chapter offers another specific exercise for that.
Yes, this exercise helps foster what Neff calls a middle way, accepting imperfection while simultaneously nurturing your physical health. It's got a few steps.
Okay, lay it on us.
1. List what you like. Get a pen and paper. Make a kind, honest assessment. List all the features you actually like about your body, even things not typically considered beautiful by society. Maybe you have strong hands, good digestion, great endurance, a smile you like. Take a moment to truly appreciate them.
Focus on the positive first.
Yes. 2. List what you don't like. Now, list features you're unhappy with, perhaps your skin, your weight, your fitness level. As you do this, the key is to give yourself compassion for the difficulty of being an imperfect human in a world with impossible ideals. Make a balanced assessment. Don't minimize your feelings, but also try not to blow flaws out of proportion.
Acknowledge the struggle with kindness.
Precisely. 3. Give compassion for imperfections. Really acknowledge the immense societal pressure to be perfect and the suffering it causes you, and frankly, most people. Be kind and understanding toward your dissatisfaction, recognizing it's a shared human experience. It's not just you.
We're all in this together.
Kind of, yeah. 4. Identify steps you want to take. Finally, forgetting what others think or expect, what steps would you genuinely take because you care about yourself and your well-being? Not because you hate yourself, but because you care. Whether it's losing weight, exercising more, eating more mindfully, getting more sleep, whatever it is. And crucially, motivate these changes with kindness, focusing on your intrinsic desire to be healthy and happy, not on self-loathing.
Motivating with care, not criticism. It keeps coming back to that.
That's the core message.
So, beyond just motivation for achievement or body image, self-compassion offers something maybe even deeper. The clarity needed to see what truly needs changing within ourselves, like our character flaws or mistakes.
Yeah, this is a really interesting point. It's kind of counterintuitive again, but people suffering from intense shame and self-judgment often have trouble seeing themselves clearly. They might even blame others for their moral failures.
Why is that?
Well, think about it. Who wants to admit inadequacies when it means facing a brutal attack from their own inner critic?
Right, it's too painful.
It's too painful, so it's often easier psychologically to sweep things under the rug or point a finger elsewhere. Neff notes this can be particularly true for men who may sometimes use anger to deflect responsibility, covering up underlying feelings of weakness or vulnerability, which can lead to really damaging behavior in relationships.
The chapter actually delves into the powerful work of Stephen Stosny, who runs these boot camps for abusive men.
Right, intense programs. And his program centers on developing self-compassion, specifically to help these men understand the vulnerability and pain that often underlies their rage.
So compassion helps them face the difficult stuff.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, when people, men and women, learn to relate to their deficiencies with compassion instead of shame, they no longer feel that overwhelming need to deny personal responsibility. This emotional safety allows them to actually focus on fostering loving, healthy relationships instead of just protecting a fragile ego.
And there's research on this too.
Yes, a study found that participants who were encouraged to be self-compassionate when recalling a past mistake or failure experienced fewer negative emotions, and they took more personal responsibility for the event compared to control groups.
More responsibility, not less.
More responsibility. They weren't letting themselves off the hook. They were confronting their actions with more honesty and less defensiveness because it felt safer to do so.
So the message really isn't that self-compassion lets us off the hook or excuses bad behavior. It's actually quite the opposite, isn't it?
Exactly. By softening the blow of self-judgment and recognizing our shared imperfect humanity, the fact that everyone messes up, we create the psychological safety needed to see ourselves with much greater honesty and clarity.
We can actually look.
We can actually look, we can admit our shortcomings, maybe we overreact sometimes, maybe we're irresponsible or passive or controlling. If we're consumed by shame, we become self-absorbed, right? We can't truly focus on the person we might have hurt.
Too busy beating ourselves up.
Exactly. Self-compassion provides the emotional security to genuinely take responsibility, consider the impact of our actions on others, and sincerely apologize, which leads to true repair and growth in relationships.
Kristin Neff, the author herself, shares a very personal story of applying this in her own life. She admits a tendency to be irritable when stressed, often taking it out on her husband.
Yeah, a very relatable example. Before she embraced self-compassion, she said she would justify her reactions, find 10 reasons why her snapping was somehow appropriate, even if deep down she knew it wasn't.
Been there too.
I think we all have, and that's a pattern many of us fall into when we're in a foul mood. Neff found that through practicing self-compassion, she's now able to see herself more clearly in those moments and apologize much more quickly, often before her husband even points out her unfairness.
Because she's not defending herself so fiercely.
Right. She understands her negative moods aren't personal attacks, they're just difficult states. And she can focus on remedies, like asking for a hug rather than digging in her heels. This transforms the dynamic into more of a two-way street, leading to mutual apologies and less conflict. She learned that while irritability might be an Achilles heel for her, it doesn't define her, and crucially, she has the power to respond differently.
So when you make mistakes, instead of reaching for that rawhide whip of self-criticism, you can genuinely throw a cozy blanket of compassion around your own shoulders.
Beautifully put. That's the essence of it.
Wow. What a truly eye-opening deep dive into how self-compassion reshapes not just how we feel, but how we genuinely grow and motivate ourselves. We've seen how self-criticism, so often driven by fear, frequently backfires. It leads to anxiety, self-handicapping, and ultimately hinders our potential.
And conversely, how self-compassion, rooted in love and a genuine desire for our own well-being, empowers us. It helps us maintain high standards without crushing ourselves, learn profoundly from failure, pursue intrinsically motivating goals, heal our often difficult relationship with our bodies, and gain the clarity needed for genuine self-improvement and healthier relationships.
It sounds like it creates the brave, confident, and resilient mindset we really need to achieve our dreams and live more fully.
I believe it does. It provides that secure base from which we can explore and strive.
So, as you, our listener, go about your day, maybe facing deadlines, social pressures, personal challenges, all that stuff, we encourage you to consider this.
What might fundamentally shift in your life, in your motivation, your learning, your relationships, your happiness, if you consciously approached your own struggles, your imperfections, and your inevitable setbacks with the same kindness and understanding you would unreservedly offer a dear friend?
Something to really think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into self-compassion and motivation based on Kristin Neff's work. We hope this exploration gives you valuable insights and maybe some practical tools for your own incredible journey of growth.